It's not a game, it's a rage thing. It's not a game, it's a rage thing. not a game. It's a rich thing.
Yo, what is good, YouTube? What is good, PlayStation Nation? It is your boy Persona of Gaming with Persona, host of When Persona Speaks podcast, host of When Persona Interviews, and host of What's Up PlayStation podcast every Saturday morning at 11 a.m. And first and foremost, shout out to everybody that is here right now. Shout out to the early birds. Shout out to the ones that were here before the stream even started. And shout out to everybody that's coming through right now and people that's going to listen to this later on when it uploads and all that great stuff. Shout out to all of you. So let me give you guys a round of applause real quick. Shout out to the people in the chat. Shout out to the people in the chat. You feel me? Let me know how the sound is too, guys. You know, make sure everything is 100% for y'all. But, so guys, I got a very, very, very special guest with me today. I put for those that are wondering, I put the tweet out a couple weeks back. And I was like, hey, man, who do you guys want to see on When Persona interviews? I know a lot of people was like, yo, I want Crap on there. Get CrapGamer on there. Get CrapGamer. And, that's perfect for me. I'm like, hey, he was already on my radar. So the stars align and we got that thing going. So I've got the one, the only CrapGamer in the building. Crap, please introduce yourself to the people.
Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm happy to be here. It's funny because I actually make myself pretty much available for doing these type of things, and a lot of people don't really ask. So, it's pretty cool when people do ask. You can imagine a lot of Xbox podcasts don't want me on there anymore. But so it's fun to get out there and do these things. I love talking about video games, and obviously, just interacting with the fans and stuff like that. So this is really cool to actually be able to get out here and do another channel. Plus, like I said, man, we used to kind of go back and forth a little bit back in the day, and funny how things change,
Oh yeah. It's ladies and gentlemen, if you don't know, I've known Crap way back since the Bang Bang days, and that was like 2014 when he was like true bot, true hardcore Xbox fan. And those debates of back and forth between you, me, Bari, the council, Zaire, and all of them, it was just, man, it was crazy.
It was, man. Like, but that's the stuff that kind of makes us, the funny thing was back then I was, people would make fun of me. People would make fun of Xbox, but realistically, they had games, that I wanted to play, and that's why I went with Xbox. And then that started to fade a little bit after a few years.
We definitely we go delve into that. Trust and believe. But before we start the interview, ladies and gents in the chat, if there's any questions you have for CrapGamer, type them out in the chat, and I'll ask Crap as we go through the interview. All I ask, guys, I say this all the time. Be respectful. You know, we respectful, man. We adults. You feel me? So be
Yeah.
respectful. My supporters, they're real respectful. So you just got to reiterate that, right? So let's jump straight into it. Crap. I want to start, and this is something that I've always wondered since like way back in the day. I got to start with your name. CrapGamer. How did that like wait how did you arrive to that name, especially when it came to creating a YouTube channel and really trying to push the like how did
Yeah.
that happen? Like let us know.
So the interesting thing with that is I was playing Star Wars Battlefront 2 on the PlayStation 2 like back in like 2005, 2006, and I thought like that was my first online game that I was playing where it was like that wasn't a sports game that was online. You know what I mean? And I just started to really kind of enjoy that kind of interaction with people. I was in a guild and stuff like that. So and the names popped up when somebody killed somebody or something. You know what I mean? So I thought, man, that would be really funny as if, you know, my name was like Turd Gamer or something like that. And then I was just like kind of settled on Crap Gamer. And then I thought, you know, it's going to be ironic because people are either going to be complaining that they got killed by somebody who calls himself Crap Gamer, or they can't make fun of me because I suck because I'm calling myself Crap Gamer. So it really kind of served two purposes. So I started my own guild. And we were called Mercenaries of Honor, and we had, you know, a forum, and we had all this kind of cool stuff going on. And the funny thing was that I started the YouTube channel because I was a little bit older. You know, I was in my 20s at the time, and I was a little bit older than some of the recruits and stuff. And a lot of people could only afford maybe 1 or 2 games a year. So they're like, "Can you know, review some of the games that you get so we can know if they're good or not?" So that's where I started doing reviews. They were realistically reviews for my guild and for the people in there, so they could like see if a game I thought was good or not. I decided to do one video about, you know, I was excited about the Xbox One and why I was going to get it. I could only get one at the time. It was either going to be an Xbox One or PS4, and it was the exclusives. I did a video. Next thing you know, man, everybody was hating on me, and I was like, whoa, you know. And
Yeah.
Next Gen found me, and we kind of started, you know, talking, and then we did BGST and that kind of stuff. And that's sort of where that came from. I just thought it was like the name was kind of ironic or whatever, kind of funny, and you know, just had sort of a lot of fun. Well, I mean, Salty, I see, man, Guild, or we are a gaming clan, I guess, you know, you could call us that. We were pretty big, man. We played Call of Duty 4, and actually we had a section on PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360. We did Halo 3, Call of Duty 4 on both, and we also did. Let me think, what else did we do? I think we did some Battlefield at one point or something like that. We did a lot of games, but we were actually pretty good for a while. So yeah, you know.
That's interesting. So when it comes to content creation, because you've been doing it for quite some time, and I'm sure even prior to us meeting on Facebook or whatever, you were doing content creation. Because I remember your videos, you would post them up in Bang Bang, and you know we would watch them and be like, yo, what, like, you know. So you definitely been doing this for some time. So
Yeah.
in terms of content creation, where did that passion come from? To really like break into this whole scene.
You know, people were just like kind of saying that you shouldn't talk positive about Xbox, and there wasn't a lot of positivity. So that's where the kind of the content creation came from. But I was really inspired originally when I was just doing reviews. I would watch like Angry Video Game Nerd. I don't know if you're familiar with that guy, but like he does like these like in a characters kind of way, does a lot of reviews for games that suck, and I really kind of like that, like the humor and stuff like that. So he was one of the original YouTube stars, and I really kind of always looked up to that. So that's why I started doing reviews, and in fact I even tried to do some like angry reviews or whatever early on, and you know, it didn't like work out or anything, but you know, it's just like that's how I started, and I kind of got into it, and I was like, you know, this is a lot of fun. You know, I was a big like Howard Stern fan and stuff like that. So when we started doing the podcast, I liked sort of that aspect of it where we could sit there and talk about something I'm very passionate about. Like I could talk about sports or wrestling or, you know, games for hours, and, you know, and I'm not going to get bored of it because I enjoy those things very much. So a lot of people, if you're wondering, that's what, like, you can't just start doing podcasts and start doing, you know, content if your heart's not into it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
So, and that's the first thing I'll say. So a lot of people go, because I used to do an Xbox podcast called Xbox Nation on Wednesday nights, and I stopped doing it about 1.5 years ago. And a lot of people ask me, well, why'd you stop doing it? You know, it was a pretty popular show. The truth of the matter is, I was having less and less fun on Xbox, right? How am I going to do an Xbox podcast if I'm not enjoying Xbox? So I'm not the type of person like, I like to do entertainment and stuff like that. But deep down, if I'm not having fun or enjoying myself, that's it. I'm done. So I ended that, you know what I mean? And so now I just kind of was like, if I'm going to do content, I'm going to do the kind of content that I want. And, obviously a lot of people feel a certain way about that or whatever, but it's always for me, just about the games and stuff like that. And if I'm passionate about something, it's the games themselves. I just really enjoy that aspect of it. And that's the way it's been for me for, since like 1986 or so, when I was playing like the NES and stuff. So yeah.
And in turn, and and I don't think anyone is expected, is my mask anyway. Did you expect yourself to kind of, because you blew up essentially, like you seen that thing like what 70,000 subs or something like that? You blew up. Was that a shock when you really started to see the traction and really started to see that growth? Like, were you expecting that, or like how did that?
My initial goal was 1,000.
Okay.
Right. So, and then once I get that, I was like, well, I'll probably never reach 8,000. And then when I hit that, I was just like, well, that's, I'm not going to set another goal, because it's just, it can go as much as it wants, you know what I mean? And I think the highest I did was, I think 61,000. And then that's when I sort of kind of switched my content up and started, being really disappointed with Xbox. And then I lost a bunch of subscribers. And then, people find you again, it all worked itself out. I got you know what I'm saying? And it was like, for me personally, almost like starting over on my channel, which was kind of something that was interesting, because there was a point where I was like, I'm having fun again. I wasn't doing as well, but at least I was having fun. So that was, to me, was the most important thing. So that's why, like, I started up. I'm still doing M&C show with Mooch. We do that on Sundays. That's probably that's like total just fun. I just enjoy that. Me and him work well off each other, and it's just a lot of fun to kind of talk games and things like that. So that's basically kind of sums up that.
Yeah. Now I gotta ask the hard hitting question here. What ultimately what made you switch sides? Because even for when and I'll use myself. When I first seen it happen, I was like, what? Like, because it threw me off, because you were so gun ho about Xbox and being the best place to play, and nothing is greater than Xbox and things like that. So then to see that whole switch, it threw me off, because I'm like, yo, is he capping right now? Is he really trying to, like, what is he trying to do here? Because at first I looked at it as a little suspicious, but then the more I saw the content, the more that I seen your activity on Twitter, I'm like, okay, this guy, he's genuinely not feeling Xbox. Which, as much as I prefer PlayStation, it was kind of still like, wow, like it shocked me. So, like, in your words, like, let us know, like, what was ultimately what made you say, I can't do this anymore. I'm done with Xbox.
Yeah, well, like, I think one of the things that really kind of set things up for me was I was still enjoying Xbox. Phil Spencer, like, me and him, I've talked to him, and people are very aware. Like, me and him kind of had a thing when they announced Quantum Break was coming to PC, and he's like, you canceled your pre-order because somebody else can play a game, and everybody remembers that point, but they don't remember the rest of the tweets in between, where I explained to him that you announced something as an exclusive for over 3 years, and I had known people that were PC gamers that bought an Xbox One for the game. Right. And if it's coming to PC anyway, then they just wasted their money because they didn't need to. Right. So I thought it was like very non-consumer friendly. And he's talking about breaking down walls. And I'm like, but Phil, you charge people to play online for free to play games, even back then. And so me and him kind of got into it a little bit. I was like, all right, but I still was enjoying Xbox. I think 2018, because I would play, like, I didn't get a PlayStation 4 until 2015, I think. And I got it specifically for Uncharted 4, which, I was a big fan of the Uncharted series. And even when I was a big Xbox fanboy, I was like, Uncharted 2 was probably the best game of last generation, in my opinion. So I was a big fan. So of course I was going to get a PS4 when Uncharted came out. But around 2018, I think the heavy hitters for Xbox that year were Sea of Thieves, which I liked, but it was lacking content. State of Decay 2, which was maybe my biggest letdown ever, because that was going to be like, they were AAA, they claimed, and it was going to be great, and it just was so bad, so bad. And then they had we were basically beta testing PUBG. Okay, those were the
Mm-hmm.
three big games from Microsoft that year. On the PlayStation side, I played God of War, Detroit Become Human, and Spider-Man.
Yeah,
Right? It was
yeah,
like
yeah.
I at that point when I really started to actually not begrudgingly play PlayStation, because a lot of times I played through a PlayStation game and go, yeah, but I can't wait to get back on Xbox. Right?
Mm-hmm,
Well,
mm-hmm.
this when I played God of War in March of 2018, I was like, okay, this is I could see the quality difference. This is what I should be playing. Okay. Then I followed that up with Detroit. The funny thing about Detroit is that game maybe had the best story I've ever played. Right? I played it back to back to back, right, to get different things. And there aren't just small differences in that game. There's like huge differences. And I was used to playing like I thought it was going to be a lot like a Telltale game. It wasn't. Like the choices actually mattered and characters could die. You know what I mean? It was like a huge, like amazing game. And then I played Spider-Man and I was like, this is okay. And then I kind of went back to Spider-Man and I started to really enjoy it. And I was like, yeah, this is really good. And then I was like, well, I'm going to give Microsoft till E3 2019. They got to announce something, because I started looking up dates and I was like, they didn't announce a new AAA IP since 2015. That was Sea of Thieves. They haven't
Mm-hmm.
announced one since then. We're already 4+ years past that. So that E3 would have 5 years. They got up there, announced another new console, which is the Xbox Series X now, which, if you're keeping track, since 2016, mind you, they've announced the Xbox One S, the Xbox One X, the Xbox SAD, the Xbox Series X, and it looks like Xbox Lockhart or Series S. So 5 new consoles since 2016, but you can't
You
plan
can
a new
even go
AAA
further back
IP.
than that. And I think that was 2014 where they announced the Xbox Elite. Remember that console?
Yeah,
And it had that
exactly. It had a solid
20%.
state drive.
Yeah, it had
Yeah,
a 20% faster loading and all this other stuff, and had the
yeah,
Elite controller. And I'm like,
yeah.
what is, what is
Exactly.
going?
So the thing that I couldn't get, because whenever I bring this up, people go, "Well, games take time," and I'm like, games do take time, but I have a feeling that they've been planning something like the Series X for 4 or 5 years, right?
Yeah,
Like you R&D it, you get everything out, so you're
yeah, that's
getting
not
that
something that happens
prepared.
overnight.
Yeah, exactly. You're getting that prepared, and you have 0 games to go with it. Now, when I bought the Xbox One X, Phil Spencer at that same year says we signed a bunch of deals. We're going to have exclusives, big exclusives coming, but we're going to wait a couple years to announce them. And we're still waiting. I still don't know what those deals are. I hope they weren't stuff like Tell Me Why or some of that stuff, or Battletoads. Like those are not the type of things that I was looking forward to. So
Hmm.
I've had an Xbox One X, which is a good console. It's a powerful console. It's a good console. But at the end of the day, maybe 10 multiplats look different to my eyes on it as opposed to the PS4 Pro, like Red Dead Redemption 2 being the main one.
Hmm. Hmm.
Most of the other stuff looks exactly the same.
Hmm.
So, I have this console that I spent $500 for plus tax, and there's not a huge difference. And Microsoft literally put out a Forza and a Gears game, and that's it to realistically from their first party in terms of AAAs to support that. That's piss poor.
Yeah.
Like how in the world can anybody be okay with that? And so for me, once I seen that 2019 and they announced more console, more hardware, I was pissed because I was live on air when this is there. I felt like crying, man. I was like, you got to be kidding me.
Hmm.
I was like,
Hmm.
that's it. They promised like a 2-hour show. It was like an hour and 20 minutes.
Yeah.
No new AAA IP. Literally, I mean, there was next to nothing going on.
So then I have to ask this then. You cutting in and out. What'd you say?
I was just saying, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, okay. So this is something that I want to ask is, you know, making that shift and seeing everything that was happening, right? Prior to that, when you were hardcore an Xbox person, like a hardcore Xbox guy, do you like when you think back now? Do you think that deep down, you've always felt like this to a degree, but you were remaining optimistic in hopes that Xbox would catch up? Because when we look back at the beginning of the gen, and we look at 2014, 2015, 2016, Xbox was kind of, still kind of, for lack of a better term, was still kind of competing. But PlayStation, in my opinion, of course, PlayStation still had them. They were still edging them out. So as an Xbox fan back then and seeing that on the PlayStation side, do you at any point looking back now think that, maybe I was always a PlayStation fan, a bigger PlayStation fan that I let on, but I wanted to remain optimistic for
Well,
Xbox in hopes
the
that they would surpass PlayStation.
I still own all the play. Like I still own my PlayStation 1, my PlayStation 2, my PlayStation 3.
Hmm.
I bought a PlayStation 4 in 2015. I bought a Pro. After that, I have the VR headset. I have my PSP and my Vita still. So I like PlayStation. I just was more of an Xbox fan. Like, to be honest with you, some of my biggest and best memories are playing like Gears of War with my friends and my family on the Xbox 360,
Mm.
and some of that like Halo 3. So I'm a huge Xbox fan, and I think, but I like PlayStation. It's just that I liked Xbox better, and I liked the achievement system, and I liked a lot of the stuff that they were doing. I liked the controller better, and so I was really buying into a lot of what Phil was selling, and that's sort of why I come across as being a little bit bitter now. I just feel like the guy literally contradicts himself like almost on a daily basis,
Hmm. Hmm.
and that sort of catches up with him. Like you probably seen it where every E3 he promised it to be the biggest and best E3, the best Xbox lineup ever. Like you can find these quotes every single year from him.
Yeah. I
Okay,
mean, even some of
so
his interviews in with like regular just media where he's saying, single player games don't matter, and 60 frames
yeah,
doesn't matter, like all that stuff through the years, it's kind of just thrown me off. I'm like, dude, like your actions and what you're saying and your actions don't match
yeah,
for
in
me.
2017, when he's trying to sell us a 4K 30 machine, most people didn't care about frame rates, and now
Hmm.
their focus is frame rates and this kind of stuff. So I get it, like when you're trying to sell something, but it's like if you're trying to sell something, okay? Them being kind of wishy washy about it, like well, we don't even care if you buy our console or whatever. That's not
But don't
selling
treat
me
me
on your
like an idiot
console.
though. Like don't treat me like a kid or
Exactly,
like I'm stupid. Like,
and, and
I
and
do
the thing,
research and I know about these things. So
yeah,
like don't sit here. Oh, we don't care if you buy.
and,
What
and
you're
the and
saying
the
and
thing
doing are two different things.
yeah, the thing that kind of rubs me the wrong way too is I'm okay with the stuff that I've come to terms with the fact that they put everything on PC, but this year in particular they put more games on PC than their console,
Mm.
and that I have a big problem with because I could never foresee an instance where Phil would allow a game to come from their studios to launch on Xbox without it being launched on the PC at the same exact time.
Yeah.
I could never see that happening that way around. It just seems almost like the console is sort of the afterthought. It's like they're all about trying to get people to play their stuff on PC. And I understand it. People buy their stuff on Steam, right? Like we've seen it. Like people are buying, they probably like that. They're probably getting more money from some of those sales on Steam than they are from Game Pass because they've admitted they're not getting much off of Game Pass right now.
Mm-hmm.
So, and people on Steam, they're buying the games because they don't want to mess with the Windows Store and Game Pass either. So I feel like that's a kind of a shot at Microsoft, like people aren't buying they would rather buy something at full price on Steam than play it off of Game Pass on the Windows Store or Xbox. And
Yeah.
that kind of says it all. And for people that go, well, Xbox and putting your stuff day and date on PC hasn't hurt them. I wholeheartedly disagree because according to AMD, as of March of this year, they said that they had shipped 150 million GPUs between PS4 and Xbox One.
Mm.
Sony had just announced 109 million PlayStation 4 shipped. That left 41 million, meaning Xbox had only shipped about or sold 41 million consoles. Okay,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's not great. So even if you give them an extra million, they discontinued earlier in the year of this year. So obviously, that's kind of
Whatever's
hampered them.
out
They
there is
sold,
out
yeah,
there.
yeah. So they
Mm.
sold like 17,000 last month or whatever in the U.S. That's really poor. But so if you look at things, going back to 2014 was the last time they announced their sales at something like 14 million. So even if you want to go up to 2016 and say that there was rumors that they were at 28 million at that time or so, and that's when they announced games day and date with PC.
Mm.
So you could literally say from that point on, in 4 years, it went from 28 million to 42 million in 4 years. Like
Mm.
I definitely think it hampers it, which is why I'm against PlayStation doing that. Like if
Yeah.
you ask me my opinion on that, I think day and date it would be a
I
terrible
mean,
idea.
even outside of day and date, right? Let's just say the old games, right? I
Yeah.
personally think like putting the old games on there, it puts that mindset, it puts that thought into people's head that, oh, okay, if I wait long enough, I'm gonna get what I want,
Yeah.
right? So I don't have to buy the PlayStation, I don't have to buy into the brand, I don't have to buy into the ecosystem, whatever. So that
Yeah.
devalues
The console, it
the
does.
console, and
It
that was something that I
100%
was
does.
saying,
Yeah.
yesterday, is that devaluing, when it comes to the console space, we just watched Nvidia's show today, right? Consoles are already behind on that, like admittedly, right?
Yeah.
To a degree, the console space is in my opinion under attack because what separates consoles from PC is not the power, because we know that PC has the power because PC is modular. So
Yeah.
what is the reason to own a console in 2020 and beyond? It's the games that cannot be played anywhere else.
Yeah.
And I would hate I use the comparison of Xbox, and a lot of people say, oh well, Xbox, they had bad games or whatever. Even if that is true, them putting their games on PC sped up the devaluing and ultimately the death of Xbox in the eyes of the consumer and the gamer.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, they really care more about, they focus too much on like PC and like the phones, and you know what I mean. I'm like, they're like, we're winning over the PC gamers, and I see Phil kind of talk like that, and I'm like, well, are you going to win back the console owners, because there's a lot of work to do there. People who went with them this generation under their hype and a lot of the promises that were made were left unfulfilled. Okay, like I'll give you another example. 2020 is going to be a year in which Xbox Studios does 0 AAA releases for their consoles. 0. Like that's, to me, is ridiculous. You're going to launch a next gen console as well with 0 AAAs at launch, and possibly if Halo is the end of next year, you're looking at 2 years between a AAA release from that first party. That, to me, I don't recall any other first party ever in the history of gaming not releasing a game in 2 years. I couldn't imagine
That's
that.
crazy.
Okay, it's crazy. And look,
But
Gears
see
5.
go ahead.
Gears 5 came out September 6, 2019.
Mm-hmm.
We're almost to September 6, 2020. That'll be 1 full year without a AAA. So before the year even ends, it's been over a year since we've gotten one. And, I just feel like that's really poor planning on their part. And Microsoft has been known for buying exclusives. So they have all this money, and people keep saying, oh, things are going to get better. Things are going to get better. They got the backing from Microsoft. Well, why haven't they bought anything? Why is it that Sony can buy timed exclusives and content for their fans? Even Final Fantasy VII. See, that's why I think Sony, when everybody goes, Sony's going to do things like day and date or whatever, I disagree, because they saw the importance of locking down Final Fantasy VII Remake and keeping it off of PC for a year.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if they weren't aware of the situation, then they wouldn't have done that. So I feel, and it helped out. Like, didn't it sold like 5.5 million or whatever? Like, it did huge numbers.
Well,
Yeah.
I have to ask this. You see how vocal you are about the glaring, because these are glaring issues, right? And never mind PlayStation being my preference, right? Never mind, as much as PlayStation is my preference, I say this all the time. I'm a gamer first, a PlayStation fan second. Meaning, I'm gonna play games wherever the games are. You get what I'm saying? So,
Yeah.
Seeing these glaring issues with Xbox and how Xbox is moving, right? Do you think that the reason why a large portion of the community and a large portion of people within the industry are not as vocal about this is because Game Pass is there?
I think Game Pass has been a bit of a crutch. Okay. Like, a lot of people will go, well, you know what? Game Pass is cheap or whatever, so I'm going to get it. But I also see some instances where, Microsoft has used Game Pass to put unfinished product. And I don't think anybody should cheer that. I don't care how cheap something is. You shouldn't place an unfinished product in there. And I feel like if it wasn't for fans and people like me calling out like that Halo Infinite incident, they probably would have just released that in Game Pass unfinished and not, you know what I mean? And said, well, we'll fix it later as we go along. But it was so bad that, everybody's, even some of the most hardcore fans, not everybody, because I did see a lot of Xbox fans go, yeah, it looks pretty good. It just got to get some lighting on it or whatever. And I'm that needs a lot more than lighting. Okay. That's like piss poor leadership.
I mean,
I've been saying
when you
this.
see there's actually technological issues with that Halo gameplay pop-ins, and it was a mess.
Yeah, exactly.
And this is coming from all sides, in my opinion. It's a mess. Anybody with eyes can look at that and be like, this is not good.
Yeah, myself and Mooch were even talking about how 343 has leadership issues. We've been talking about that for over a year and a half. They lost like back-to-back game directors, and now they put a new person in charge, Joseph Staten, of the single player, and
Mm.
another person in charge of the multiplayer, literally just now. Right. So that could be, the game could get pushed into 2022. We don't know. But
Mm-hmm.
even if it's the end of 2021, that's still a long wait. And, this game could still launch kind of unfinished. They're saying
Yeah.
it's going to be a 10-year plan. And that's something that I think a lot of people have issue with as well. Like, I don't mind certain games as a service. Like, I'm playing Avengers right now.
Yeah.
But, the game has to have a beginning, middle, of an end first and foremost. Like, that's what, like, I know I've been on record as saying I love Sea of Thieves, it was great, game of the generation or whatever, and that was before I played a lot of the other stuff and was like,
So
I kind
let
of
me ask, when you were saying that at that time, did you truly believe that? Like, or were you just saying that?
I thought multiplayer wise it was something new
Okay.
that I had never experienced before. But then what happened with that was very early on, there was no way to turn off crossplay, and so we were playing it, and people on PC were playing it in our game, and they started using like all the different cheats and stuff that's available. And we like, this stuff was even posted on YouTube, right, in the forums, and they just kind of ignored the problems.
Yeah.
So very quickly, I kind of got off the game. I like it, but it's like it was lacking content for sure, and I haven't gone back probably in a year and a half.
Okay.
So I mean, they really kind of messed up there. And same thing with Gears. Like, I was a big Gears fan. I thought they messed up the story. I want to play as Delta Squad. I don't want to play as the new characters. I thought they were boring, and then they kind of messed up the multiplayer. I guess they went back and they're kind of listening now and fixing it, but it's a little late for me personally. Like, I'm not just going to jump into it now and just go, oh wow. But literally every Gears game, even 4, I put hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours into. Right, this is this one is the only one. Even Judgment, I put a lot of time into. But this is the first one that I've not actually put a lot of time into. This is the first one that I've not put hardly any time into. I think less than 20 hours.
So it's crazy. Even now, while we sit here in this podcast, on this interview, it's crazy to hear you speak like this, knowing where you came from. Still like, it's mind blowing. So I have to ask, making this sudden shift, right, in your content, how you're speaking, your thought process, your activity on Twitter, all these different things, making this sudden shift, I'm sure it was, I don't want to say detrimental, but it had to be a shell shock to not just your core audience, but really the people around you that interacted you, even if it was fanboy, debates or whatever, things like that, just people that interacted with you as a whole, saw this as a shell shock, right? So when you made this shift, how did this really affect how other people in the community viewed you? Because I'm pretty sure that you were getting a lot of, oh, he's faking it for views, he's trying to cash in on PlayStation, he's lying, he's a code, all this stuff. Like, how did that, what were you getting? Like, what type of hate, whatever, were you getting?
Well, naturally, I think one of the things for me was I built up a channel of Xbox fans mostly. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So how people would think that by switching up content would somehow get me more views or more subscribers, I kind of baffled me. It was like quite the opposite, and I lost a lot, and I knew that I would. It was just a situation where I just had to kind of be truthful about this, what was going on. And a lot of people didn't like it. And a lot of people kind of chastised me, and, they were, and I was upfront about it. I was like, look, I've lost a lot doing this, but it's all about the games for me. And if you don't understand that, and thankfully there are a lot of Xbox fans who do understand that, right? Mm-hmm. Like, now I see a lot of Xbox fans go, wow, we haven't even seen anything running on the, we haven't seen anything running on the Xbox Series X. Mm-hmm. And, it could be years before we get games. Like, this is stuff that I've been saying for a long time. And now people are starting to say what I've been saying. And so a lot of people go, well, do you feel like you owe CrapGamer an apology, or, do you feel a little vindication? I do feel a little vindication from that. But to me, when people bring up stuff like that, I always go, why is it so out of the realm of possibility for somebody to be upset about not getting games? Mm-hmm. Okay, like, everybody has to make an excuse for Xbox, right? Nobody can legitimately be pissed off about lack of content or lack of AAA games or the direction that Xbox is in. It's always got to be some other kind of excuse or issue, and that's the problem that I have, because for me personally, I just feel like that's where I was at, right? Like, how in the world, like, I'm not having fun with Xbox. They're not only are they not putting out any exclusives or anything, but the games that they are putting out are things that I'm not downloading or even bothering with. Like for the first time as an Xbox fan, I'm not playing everything they're putting out, and it's kind of blowing my mind, right? Like I'll be honest with you, like I didn't bother to download Wasteland 3 or tell me why, or I haven't like I joked around and downloaded Bleeding Edge, and it was like it's terrible,
Yeah.
right? Like just
Yeah.
the quality of games that they're putting out is just terrible, and not the Xbox that I'm used to, man. Like you go back to the whole reason why I bought an Xbox was like the Gears of War, the first Gears of War, and they had, Saints Row, the first one was exclusive. BioShock was exclusive for a year. Mass Effect was exclusive. They
They
had
were
games.
really trying to compete.
Yeah. And they even had games like Blue Dragon and stuff like that. So they really went out there and were competing. And I feel like they're not competing at all right now. And it's very unfortunate because I think that competition really kind of bleeds for the industry, right? Like if you don't have Sony and Microsoft kind of competing with each other, that really kind of sets us all up for a little bit of failure.
Yeah.
Because like I don't want Sony to be able to do whatever they want, and I don't want Microsoft to do whatever they want. I feel like these companies have to sort of play off of each other, and so the fact that they're not really doing that, like Microsoft keeps going, oh well, we don't even care about selling consoles. I feel like it doesn't matter. You can have your games available on a billion platforms, but if your content sucks, it's not going to matter, right?
Yeah.
Like Crackdown 3 was terrible. It doesn't matter if that's available on everybody's phone right now for free. People aren't going to play it.
Yeah.
You got to have stuff that's compelling.
Yeah.
So I feel like that still, like you got to worry about the content first. Why did they worry about the content dead last? I'll never understand why that happened, right? Like for me personally, I feel like that was a huge mistake on their part. They should have been focused on the content first and foremost, and the fact that they weren't really just kind of tells you everything you need to know. And whenever you hear them talk now, it's always about like Game Pass or backwards compatibility or something along those lines, and I just do not understand how anybody could be okay with that, even if you're a huge Xbox fanboy. I said this, and I still say this. All these Xbox podcasts should start and end their show with asking Microsoft for AAA games, asking Microsoft for better, because they absolutely are. That should be the main thing, right? Like I
So you
think
think a lot
Power
of
is
Xbox
great.
podcasts they're being disingenuous by not really speaking the truth?
Sure. I mean, look, you don't get stuff, and I have experience with this because I made a joke on Twitter once when Titanfall 2 released, and I had mentioned that something about. I remember Xbox fans were pissed off because they said something like green discs aren't sexy or something like that because they showed a PlayStation disc despite the fact that Xbox had marketing rights and Titanfall 1 was an exclusive. So I made a joke about maybe it would do so poorly that the studio would close down, and I made that joke on Twitter. Phil Spencer emails me and tells me, "Hey, they didn't appreciate that one." He's like that. I kid you not. He's like, we're partnered with them, and you're an influencer, and blah blah blah. They didn't appreciate it. And there's other stories you guys could probably have heard from people who, if they do say something bad about Xbox, it kind of comes back, and you get froze out a little bit or whatever.
Yeah.
But let's just say if you wanted to say interview. This is why like I don't personally do a bunch of interviews with Xbox people, because they're surrounded by PR people. First of all, you're never going to hear anything from these people that they don't want to share, right? There's not going to be any big like megaton news or anything like that. They're realistically not going to do that. They use like this sort of grassroots type thing to make them seem real accessible. Hey, I was on this podcast, or I was on that show, or this show, and it's really just a way to make the kind of like fool the community a little bit. And they're like some diehard Xbox fans. There are, but at the end of the day, like the minute I was able to sort of see past what they were lying about and that kind of stuff, I could just see clear. And I was like, man, what a douchebag I was. No, self-admitted, man. I was really just a fanboy, a blind fanboy that was just buying into everything they were hyping. I thought, Xbox was the only way. And then later on, when I was realizing that Sony was more traditional and doing the things that I really kind of appreciated, that's why I started kind of changing my tune a little bit. It was really nothing to do with, for flip-flops or whatever. I'm perfectly fine with whatever happens, man. I don't have to use YouTube or whatever, and I'm still going to game, but I still want those exclusives and great games, and just the quality level and the difference between the two is just an insane amount. Like if I were even to play a big game, okay, so I was playing Gears 5 on launch, and the funny thing with that is I couldn't progress my game. This is their big tentpole franchise, and I wasn't the only one that had this problem. It wouldn't save my progress. It wouldn't advance my games. I lost time. I had to backtrack, and I still never beat that game. But it was just ridiculous. This is their big and I could just never imagine The Last of Us or Uncharted or something like that. One of the Sony's big for God of War having an issue like that, right?
Yeah,
like I could just
yeah.
never imagine that happening. It's like they put that extra time and effort into what they're doing, and I totally appreciate that. Yeah, exactly. That crunch, not the brunch. You know what I mean? Like, listen, it seems like Microsoft Studios now, worse than ever, just take their sweet ass time making games.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I've never seen anything like it. Okay, so I bring this up. I'm like, Sony bought Insomniac Games. That studio pickup was more important than any studio pickup Microsoft had. The reason being is they put out Spider-Man in 2018. They're going to put out Miles Morales as a launch game in 2020 and Ratchet and Clank in early 2021. Okay, Microsoft bought studios in 2017 that won't have games ready till 2023.
Yeah, that's
right,
man.
Like,
that's crazy when you put it into that perspective. Like they literally bought Insomniac last year.
Yeah, look, GT Sport launched in 2017, almost head to head with Forza Motorsport 7. They're both 3 years old. GT7 is going to launch probably sometime early spring next year, but Forza Motorsport 7 or Forza Motorsport 8 or whatever they're going to call it is probably a 2023 game. Like that, how that studio used to come out with a Forza game every other year, and now it's going to take them 5 years or 6 years to come out with something. And we've been hearing about Fable for years, and it turns out that they don't even have any gameplay, and they showed off Everwild, and they don't even know what the gameplay is going to be. And they showed off Avowed, and I think that those are cool-looking games, and they'll be good. But you're talking 2023. Like, that's ridiculous. What's the reason is there to buy an Xbox Series X at launch? I mean, I'm a content creator, so at least I would have a reason, right? Like, so that I can, like, judge for myself.
As a gamer, as a consumer, you don't see that, that value.
I don't see a single reason to buy an Xbox Series X. Not a single reason.
Well, let me ask you this then, because you said something earlier that really kind of jumped out at me. When you were talking about how if you didn't talk positive about Xbox, you would get froze out by Xbox PR and things like that. So, you have more insight than any of us here. So this question is definitely going to weigh heavily on what you say. In terms of being on that Xbox side and seeing kind of that backroom dealings, right? When, now that you've, like for lack of a better term, seen the light, right? And you see other real popular Xbox centric podcasts, Xbox centric YouTubers and things like that, saying the things that they say, right?
Yeah.
Are they lying? Essentially, is it lies? Is it shilling? Is it corporate slavery? I'm not asking you to badmouth any YouTubers or content creators. I'm just asking from your perspective, seeing both sides and hearing and seeing the things that's being pushed out in this community when it comes to Xbox and how Xbox has been moving. I think in your opinion, that these things, this is disingenuous and false information?
I think that some are happy to tell people what they want to hear instead of the honest truth, right? Like, if that makes sense. And that's not like, I'm not going to knock anybody's hustle because it's, it's entertainment and stuff like that. But there are legit people that I feel like are perfectly happy with just telling an Xbox fan what they want to hear instead of the truth, right? Like, it's much more, or they'll do sleight of hand. Let's talk up the compute units and the power and how much more powerful the Series X is, and let's avoid the topic of the actual games and things like that. Like, I even see that on Twitter every day. I see people go, here's a reminder, Xbox Series X, 12 teraflops.
Oh, the Spec Ops. That's what the Spec Ops do.
Yeah, it's 12 teraflops, the most powerful thing ever.
Yeah.
And so, listen, that's fine. I think it is powerful, and it's more powerful than the PS5, but why haven't we seen anything on it? And secondly, people also don't want to bring this up, but out of all the consoles that Microsoft and Sony have released together or to compete with each other, the PS5 and Xbox Series X are the closest in power that they've ever had between any two consoles that they've ever released, like a 16 17% difference. That's it. It's not a big difference. So if you look at the Xbox One X and the PS4 Pro, it's like a 35-40% difference there. It's a huge difference. Even going back to the original Xbox had a big advantage over the PS2, and then you had the 360 and the PS3, and they had different ups and downs there. But the biggest difference, or the smallest difference between the two, is going into next generation. And so, like for me personally, I felt really bad as well because I got an Xbox One X when they were promising VR. Like, I'm a big VR fan. Like, I love VR. Okay. So they promised that, and then they walked that back, and I was like, oh, that pissed me off so bad.
Oh, so it was just piling up for you when it came to what
like Phil, he's got that, that shit-eating grin, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, I get it. This guy is like a car salesman almost, okay? And I'm sure he's a nice guy in real life or whatever, but a lot of the people that stick up for them and stick up for him are people that go to the fan fest and, they eat with the guy and, you know what I mean? They bleed green or whatever, and I think that's fine. Listen, people can spend their hard-earned money however they want.
Of course.
That's perfectly fair, and I'm never going to tell people you should definitely not buy an Xbox Series X. I'm saying for me personally, as a gamer, I can't think of a reason that I would want to get one. But if somebody else is going to get one and they're going to be happy, then hey, if you're going to be happy with that, that's fine with me. If you think Game Pass is great, then that's awesome for you. For me personally, I have Game Pass through 2022. I had Xbox Live Gold through then, and then I did the $1 thing where it changed all my remaining gold. So for $1, I get Game Pass. And I hardly use it, to be honest with you, because the whole situation with Game Pass is really, the value is really predicated to the big first party releases, and if they're going a full year without a release,
what's the point?
What's the point? Or possibly 2 years. Like, you're paying $180 a year for Ultimate, and this whole year you'll get no AAAs from them. And you go another whole year next year, it's like $360 you're paying, and you get no AAA releases in that time. Or if you're just paying the basic, it's still $240 out of pocket. Yeah. So for me personally, a lot of the games that they put in there are small indie titles or titles that are a couple years old. It is almost the basic cable package of gaming, where you could get a good game. You can get a Red Dead 2, but 2 years after launch or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like you can get, and it, so that's where
that TNT version of Marvel movies with the commercials.
Exactly.
I got a question from Nexa. He says, question for both of you. How do you feel about the way Xbox and PlayStation are ending this generation? I'll let you answer.
I feel that PlayStation ended it extremely well. The Last of Us 2 is a masterpiece that just honestly just blows my mind, the technical details and stuff that went in with that. Ghost of Tsushima, I'm still not done with that because I've been doing every side quest for some, and I'm not a side quest guy, but the side quests in that are just phenomenal. Also, Iron Man VR, I've been playing through that. Fall Guys, fun little game to play before bed or whatever. You know what I mean? Just play a few rounds of that. It's a good time. Like, also, they just released Vader Immortal in VR. I'm telling you, like, how could you not be happy? Final Fantasy VII came out this year as well.
Like, this was a great year for PlayStation.
Yeah, that was my first time playing through that, and holy cow, amazing. And then I look at the Xbox side, and it's like Ori 2. I'll give you that. It was a good game. I didn't beat it, but, it was a good game. It felt like Ori 1.5, but, it was good. And then Bleeding Edge was garbage. Flight Sim, they released that on PC, which I don't think people on console really care about that. Wasteland 3, multiplat. Let me think.
I was gonna say that's on PlayStation as well. So I was like,
Yep. Battletoads. I played that. It was okay.
It's okay.
Like,
it is.
Yeah, I beat it in 3.5 hours. It got a lot of achievements on it.
Yeah. They were just when I was playing it, they were just giving away those achievements. I was like, damn, okay.
like the thing was, I liked the beat 'em up aspects of that game, but then they get into all these stupid mini things, and I didn't like that. It was just like frustratingly bad. I wanted to get back to the beat 'em up part. So and then they released that, and then people were like, well, they're gonna also release Gears Tactics, and I'm like, yeah, great. An XCOM ripoff. I can hardly wait. You know what I mean? Or they go the Medium. Well, they made fun of every PlayStation game as being a walking simulator. There's literally no combat in the Medium.
Yeah,
it's just basically walking around. It's going to be, and Team Bloober is the same ones that did The Witcher or the Blair Witch Project. Excuse me, not The Witcher, the Blair Witch Project, and that was awful. Their games are only like 4 to 5 hours long, and people hype this up. This game's not going to have a physical release. People, and it's a timed exclusive at that. So,
Yeah,
a little double A type thing at launch. 30 frames per second. That's not really showcasing their power of that console. When I bought an Xbox One, you know what I booted up? Rise Son of Rome. At least I felt like I had made that jump. Okay. When I bought a PS5, I bought the Order 1886. It felt like a jump for me. Okay. What on Xbox Series X is going to be there to make me feel that jump? I don't think there is going to be anything. When I see Ratchet and Clank gameplay footage, that's next generation to me, right? That immersion level. The one thing that I hate more and more than anything when I'm gaming is these levels and the loading screens. Okay. Loading screens. It takes you out of the immersion. Okay.
Yes,
And now we're finally getting to that point where we're not going to have to worry about that. The controller is a total rebuild from like the ground up, pretty much.
Everything
I love that.
about PS5 just seems next gen. Like
exactly. Like
it's
they're going to
crazy.
have VR for Resident Evil Village. Like that's insane to me. Like that's like the most scary complete thing I've ever played. I couldn't even get through the last one in VR because it was that terrifying. But it's like Xbox fans will never get that experience because they reserve that for PC, right? Like Phil is a PC guy. Like, don't ever kid yourself. If you ever see him on Xbox, you see that he's on PC.
Yo,
and,
don't say it.
He is. What? He's on PC. It's like,
man.
So I'm not saying he never plays Xbox, but he is on PC a lot. So
listen, the way he was moving these last like 1 or 2, 3 years, I seen that PC stuff on the wall. That writing was on the wall.
Exactly. Look, if you're a PC gamer.
It.
If you're a PC gamer, you're getting, I believe you're only paying $5 for Game Pass on PC for the basic one.
It's $1. Like for me, it's on my PC. I paid $1 to play that Battletoads, right?
Exactly. And plus they're giving, they put, Age of Empires and Flight Simulator, which I have no interest in that, but still, Gears Tactics. Like, why they're giving PC people exclusives? They're not having to pay to play games online. And
you're
they're getting like
free
the better
plays behind Xbox Live. It's like
exactly. So
bro,
for me personally, I just feel like they're really Microsoft is sort of. And I remember this. I used to podcast with a guy named Worrywart, and he used to go, "It seems like Microsoft is hurting people towards PC, right, and these other devices because let's face it, consoles are probably a little bit harder for them to." They cost money to develop and to put out there. So they probably want people to go out there and, use these other means. And, I have a feeling that the Series X is just going to tank. Like and I don't want that succeed. As in, it's not going to succeed. It's not going to do well at all. I think it's going to be like the next Wii U personally. I do not understand. Like, and I'm not, if people want to get it. I just don't. I've yet to see an Xbox fan tell me of a good reason to get it. They go, well, all my games come with me. And I'm like, if you don't upgrade, you don't need to take them anywhere anyway. You know what I mean? Like, listen, I'm just saying.
Let me answer Nexa's question real quick. Nexa, listen, man. You watch my channel. You know how I feel about both, and that PlayStation is finishing off strong because PlayStation is doing right by their gamers. You feel me? One thing I want to ask you too, Crap. When you made the switch, I know you said that you lost like a lot of people, like a lot of supporters and things like that. But I'm sure there were some people that were hardcore Xbox guys that stuck with you, right? So, being so, speaking the way you are now about, these consoles and really like, being truthful about everything and everything, putting everything out on the table. Has any of your supporters or anybody within the community come to you and is like, I stuck around because I wanted to see where this was going when you kind of, for lack of a better term, switch sides. And, you've made me a believer. And now I'm looking at Xbox like, oh, this isn't right. PlayStation's doing better. So essentially, have you changed anybody else's outlook on how Xbox and PlayStation are?
Well, it's interesting because a lot of people just they don't associate with you anymore. You know what I mean? It's not good for business or whatever. So, but I think like Mooch, obviously, he started to feel the same way I did.
Yeah.
When it comes to that kind of stuff, I think Next Gen 720, like shout out to that guy because he's an entertaining guy as well.
Yeah.
And he was one of the first ones to sort of see this, right? When I was like, Sea of Thieves, and he's like, well, that Kraken's not even completely made. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
look under the
it's
water.
just the tentacles.
It's lacking. Yeah. So like he started seeing that stuff before even I did. I was like, there's some kind of infatuation with Phil, and I don't know what it is. I'm not lying. There is some kind of thing where like Phil Spencer has like a hold on some of these people because it was, it's easy to believe in that guy, like he's up there with his gamer t-shirt, right? And he's just like shooting the breeze with you, and you're just like, oh, okay, yeah.
I meant Phil, a cult leader.
I like exactly like, well, I don't want to say that, but I mean, it's just very interesting that, the way that people kind of believe in the guy, and I just look at it and I go, for me personally, he's been the head of Xbox since 2014, and what has he really done in terms of the games themselves? And there hasn't really been much there, and that's my main point. People can go, oh, well, he's done all this stuff and play anywhere, and he's built these better Xboxes, but I'm like, what about the games? Well, they did buy these studios, and I'm like, well,
what about the
games?
games?
Yeah, what about the games? Like they're multi-plats, a lot of them. Like he gives games away. Like Cuphead was a decent game. Well, now that's on everything. They put Ori 1 on the Switch. Like I don't trust Phil Spencer. Okay, like that's just 100% honest with you guys. I feel like he wants to get people playing Xbox as an app quickly as possible. Like he's all about streaming and that kind of stuff. And like I said, I don't feel like the average gamer or casual gamers, like everybody's always worried about Microsoft's money. They're going to get so much money. And so I'm like, I don't care about that. Where's the games, right? Where's the games? Like that's the main thing that I care about. And getting, a million, 100 million or 200 million people on their services with no games isn't a good thing. It's really just going to help them continue to do what they're doing, which is just kind of nothing. Okay. Like, and I also feel like people are like, well, casuals are going to love the xCloud. And I'm like, listen, casuals play phone games like the free phone games. Okay, they're not going to pay $180 a year to play Gears of War 5 on a phone.
On a train.
Exactly. It's not going to happen. And
so a question that I ask all my guests when I do Win Persona interviews is when you hear the phrase "the future of gaming," what comes to mind for you?
I just think that I hope that it continues to be consoles, man, because this is like another generation where people say, well, this is going to be the end of the consoles. And, and I just feel like that's not the case. Like for me, I am getting my first OLED TV this month, in preparation for the next generation,
the
right?
CX
it's got
or the C9?
Yes. Yeah, the CX, and it's going to be, and it has the very VSS. It's got the support for the 2.1 HDMI. I'm all in for that. Like I'm not a PC gamer. Like that's pretty obvious, right? Like I don't like PC gaming. So for me personally, I'm excited to be able to experience, consoles and play stuff that I want, like Call of Duty 120 frames on the console. That blows my mind. I'm excited by that stuff, and even playing stuff at 60 or being able to experience that on like on a better screen and stuff like I'm all in for that, and I'm excited for it. So for me, I've gone more digital lately, but I want to see, wireless headset from Sony with VR, and I feel like they will have that in the first couple of years. So I'm excited about that, but I'm also, just excited in general about being able to play, some higher quality games and things like that. I think I love Sony's aspect of going and making games that are only possible on their new platform, as opposed to stuff if you can make stuff and it's runnable on the previous stuff, then what's the point in upgrading? Again, like that to me doesn't make sense because, I couldn't play Mario 64 on a Super Nintendo, right? I couldn't play Mario World on an NES. Like I couldn't play Sonic World on, I could play that on Dreamcast, but I couldn't play it on a Saturn or a Genesis. It's like you have to upgrade, you have to keep moving forward, and you can't be held back.
Just look
when
at
you
how
get held
fast
back,
technology moves. Like
exactly. And not only that, I mean, like I'm not a PC guy, but they announced some impressive stuff today.
Oh yeah,
and so you see that, and you go, can you believe that Microsoft is going to support a 1.3 teraflop console from 2013? Like for two more
crazy.
years.
But that's what I'm saying. Like you can't. One thing about like gamers and stuff like that, we're very stubborn, very fickle, right? Certain, and this sounds crazy, but certain choices you can't leave in the gamer's hand, because if it's up to the gamers, we'd still be playing Atari.
Yeah,
that would be, we would be bringing games from, Atari would still be what we're playing now. because for them they're like, I don't want to buy this, I don't want to buy that. Listen, man, you got to move with the times. You get what I mean?
I agree.
One or two more questions. 'Cause I know you.
Okay. I gotta go here soon. Yeah.
In terms of the gaming community, right? What are some things within the gaming community that you feel need to change?
Oh, I think the first thing that needs to change is and I used to be guilty of this. Nobody's willing to hear anybody else out if they have a difference of opinion. Okay. Like they'll just block somebody. Like I used to block people left and right. Like if they didn't even say anything bad, just a difference of opinion. And I feel like the other thing is everybody uses the word toxic, and just because somebody has a difference of opinion again, or it might even be a negative opinion, doesn't mean that they're toxic. Okay. Yeah. Like there is toxic behavior, but just because I'm saying I wish Xbox needs to get better exclusives every day, that doesn't make me a toxic person. Yeah. Okay. Like I look at consoles and I'm like console warring, sort of like I do sports. I'm like a Baltimore Ravens fan. So when we're playing the Steelers or Browns or Bengals, man, I'm going to trash talk. And then after it's over with, hey, we're good friends. It's not saying that we can't be friends. It's just saying that, we're going to go back and forth a little bit. And, that's part of the fun of this stuff, right? It can be fun. Like I never got the whole, oh, you're negative, so you're toxic. Let's block everybody because we don't want to hear your opinion. Also, to the person in the chat that said that the CX wasn't HDMI 2.1, it says right on the thing that it's full HDMI 2.1 support with G-Sync as well. So this is the one that I'm getting, you know what I mean? Like that to me is a hell of a deal for that. So it's my first OLED. So I hear Mooch is like, you got to go OLED. I'm sure
you're doing a lot of research on it too. Like making sure you get the best one.
Yeah, exactly. So, it's one of those things where I don't do much for myself, but this is something like when the new, I can remember I bought my first HD TV with Xbox 360. You know what I mean? I think it was a plasma TV. That thing used to get hot too.
Yeah.
And then
the bulb would blow out real quick.
Exactly. And then I bought and then I upgraded to a 4K TV with the Xbox One S because I was getting ready for the X and the Pro, and I had the Pro. So I upgrade. It's not like super often, but it's an exciting time for me when I can actually do that, you know what I mean? When I can actually kind of upgrade it. That gets me excited, like the new tech and stuff like that. So,
and also T-Mang Fu said, tell Crap to unblock me. I didn't say anything. I don't say anything really to him.
I mean, I'll look for you. Like I had so many people blocked, and then so I go through there and I try to unblock as many as I can because honestly, I don't even I got some of the most foolish people that interact with me, and I have no problem with it. I mean, they say the most ridiculous things, but it's just and I argue with them nonstop, but it's just okay, I get it. Like this one dude, Game Trailers, that dude on Twitter, just insane. Like he actually bought me Death Stranding because we bet he goes Gears 5 is going to get a 95 Metacritic, and or I'll buy you a game of your choice. And I was like, okay, deal. If it gets a 95, I'll get you a game. If it gets less than a 95, you get me a game. Well, it got an 83, and so he bought me Death Stranding. You know what I mean? Like that dude. It's like he swore up and down Battletoad. He said Crackdown 3 was going to get 90 plus, and I was like, oh man. I mean, there's people like that out there, man. That just they live out there on the wild. It is.
Last question, and then we'll get out of here. From Enzo Machiavelli. Shout out to Enzo. He says, ask Crap what impact he thinks it would have if PlayStation put their exclusives on PC. Enzo, we had talked about this earlier, but Crap, I don't know if you want to.
I feel like it's a negative impact. Now, the only way that I could see them, if they come out and we're very clear about it, like once the PS5's out and they go, we're going to release some PS4 games, but we're not going to release PS5 games, right? So if they stuck maybe to a few releases from last gen, I think they could possibly get away with that. But if they start releasing stuff early on and only giving people, a certain amount of time, I feel like that would be detrimental towards the way that people get, because again, these cards and stuff that are coming out are more powerful than the consoles again. So I think they also announced a hard drive that's faster or just as fast as the PlayStation 5 one is. So, people will switch. Trust me, people go, well, nobody will switch. I know a lot of people that are playing on PC now. Even Mooch plays on PC now. I mean, he plays on console too, but a lot of people playing on PC, and it would not, because you can totally customize whatever you want to do. and
yeah.
that's not for me. I'm always going to be a console person, but I feel like that would be a mistake for Sony because, you look at it, if you sell more consoles, you can get more software sales, you can get more subscribers, more services, and things like that out there. But there's still an end cap, right? Like with all the millions and hundreds of millions of devices that can play Netflix, there's still only 150 million subscribers to Netflix.
Exactly.
So there's going to be a cap no matter what.
Yeah.
So I feel like, you're trying to get these PC people as well. To be honest with you, PC gamers seem like a lot of them I can understand Microsoft. They have their own store, their own launcher, all that kind of stuff. And they do some online games, okay? Then you look at like Horizon Zero Dawn, and that game supposedly did under 500,000 on PC, and it was heavily pirated. Okay, like I'm not saying everybody pirates games, but that could be
I don't
an
want
issue.
that for PlayStation exclusive.
Exactly. Like not only that, but once Gears of War went to PC, I don't feel like that game's a good fit on PC.
Yeah.
I felt like that should have stayed a console exclusive, and it makes the games feel like they're not as good. You know what I mean? They're not as special to me anyway, right?
Yes,
That's how I feel
yeah,
about it.
yeah.
Like I always feel like the console should always have, and even now I feel like Xbox could do so much better if they would just make something specifically for that box.
Yeah.
Right? Like stop making, okay, it's got to run on an Xbox One from 2013 and an S and an X and a Series S and a Series X and
They're too
20,000
focused on where the game can be played as opposed to making a good game.
Exactly. And then the result is you get terrible looking games like that Halo game that looked like a upgraded 360 game. It does not look good. I want, like, the reason why Sony does so well is because they're usually just focused on PlayStation consoles, right?
Yeah.
So God of War on a 1.8 teraflop PS4 base PS4 looks better than even a Gears 5 on a Xbox One X, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Okay,
Well,
because they're focused on that. Yeah, exactly.
Which
like
is crazy.
to me, let your and just let your developers do what they do with your hardware, and they'll do better. Like I think this phone stuff is a mistake. I feel like it's as a casual move as Kinect was. Okay,
Yes,
like
yes.
what they're trying to do. It's to me, it's Kinect all over again. But hey, let's get people gaming on a 5-inch phone. And I've never been out in public and seen anybody hook up a controller to a phone like that, running around playing games. I've never seen that in my life.
I even rarely see people with Switches.
I've seen one Switch in real life, like somebody had. Yeah, one.
Like out here in New York City, where like it's the Mecca, like where there's everybody everywhere. I see maybe like one or two, maybe a couple, like nothing too crazy. But yeah, so
exactly.
that's he answered the question, Enzo. And super chat. Trillwave says unblock me from Twitter. Crap. I told you Last Guardian was in vaporware and you blocked me. And his Twitter is ASVPX Cray. Shout out to Trillwave. But yo, guys, this has been the interview. Really, it was informative. Really great interview, man. I really appreciate.
I appreciate it, man. And listen, because I know how people are. They'll go, "Oh, well, Crap maybe was talking crap on people." No, man. I'm just saying, in general, there's some podcasts out there that, will skirt the honest truth with sleight of hand. Like, hey, we got good specs over here. That's not what I'll talk about the games. And I always felt like the game should be the most important thing. Like specs are nice, but if you don't have anything to play on them, then it's really kind of a moot point. So
Right,
yeah,
exactly.
And like I'm not going to knock anybody's hustle. Anybody can go make the content they want, and you're free to watch that or watch mine or watch anybody's that they want. It's all optional, right? Like follow me on Twitter or not, it's your option. Okay, but for people to watch me and then complain about it, that to me doesn't make sense. Or to follow me and then complain about what I'm talking about, that doesn't make sense. It's like all optional. And gaming is fun and should be fun and entertaining, and that's what I try to make it. And hopefully, you guys enjoyed the chat. I enjoyed being here, man. Definitely. I appreciate it. I will definitely do it again if you want me back.
Of course, man. And guys, you can follow Crap on Twitter. The link to his Twitter is in the description. Also, the link to his YouTube is in the description as well. Definitely check out CrapGamer, his content. Follow him on Twitter and all that good stuff. And Crap, any last words before we get up out of here?
That's about it, man.
Yeah,
I appreciate it.
definitely.
Game on. You guys have some fun. Stay safe and healthy, everybody.
All right, man. Guys, please be safe. Thank you for coming through, man. And I will see you guys next